Everybody knows you're not supposed to lie. But is there ever a time when a lie is not only permitted but commendable? Let's find out. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Saturday, August 12th, 2023. Our story unfolds when the children of Israel are poised and ready to cross the Jordan River into the Promised Land. It is now a completely new generation of Israelites who are ready to cross, as the original generation that had fled Egypt had sinned in the wilderness by casting a golden calf to worship when Moses lingered on the holy mountain for 40 days and nights before returning with the Ten Commandments. For their punishment, they were sentenced to wander for 40 years in the wilderness before their descendants finally entered the Promised Land. But now the 40 years of wilderness wandering are complete. Moses has died and passed on the mantle of leadership to his lieutenant, Joshua. Joshua gathers the people on the east bank of the Jordan River across from the already ancient city of Jericho. This is the moment the people had been waiting for, literally their entire lives. But now the reality of it sinks in. There are people who live there, people who will not be pleased to share their cities and their land. So now Joshua does something both wise and cunning, and yet something completely ordinary. He sends spies across the river to reconnoiter the land to see what their best strategy is for entering the land. That's where our hero, Rahab, comes in. Now, let me give you a picture of what they faced, these spies. Jericho sits in the Jordan River Valley on the east side of the Judean mountains, the ridge of highlands separating the Mediterranean Sea from the Jordan Rift Valley, the valley which sits well below sea level. The east side of the Judean mountains are barren and arid. Not much grows there except right along the riverbanks. Not many trees in sight. So Jericho is exposed, visible from miles around. But that also means that anyone approaching Jericho is visible long before they reach the city. Now obviously people came and went from cities like that regularly, so a few people coming into the gates of the city might not have been all that remarkable. That's apparently what Joshua's spies did, but in fact they were noticed. Somehow the leaders of the city not only saw them, they knew that spies had made their way into the city. What the spies do now is interesting. They seek out a prostitute who might harbor them. There's no mention of why a prostitute or why this one in particular, but they find their way into the house of Rahab, a prostitute whose house is within the walls of the city. This may seem like a small detail, but it tells us a lot. In the first place, she literally lives on the margins, the edges of society. She doesn't live where others live because her profession is not honorable. So she's relegated to life within the walls of the city, which could put her at risk in the event of a siege against the city. But it turns out this was to the advantage of Joshua's spies. They came into her house, and when city leaders came to find them, she hides them on the roof. This is where the lie comes in. We read, "The king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, 'Bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come only to search out the whole land.' But the woman took the 2 men and hid them. Then she said, 'True, the men came to me, but I did not know where they came from. And when it was time to close the gate at dark, the men went out. Where the men went, I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you can overtake them.' After admitting that the men had indeed come into her house, she now lies, not once, but twice. First, she claims that she doesn't know where they came from. This could have been a plausible lie. After all, she was simply in the business of receiving men into her bed, regardless of who they were. No reason for her to question where her customers came from. But in this case, as we shall see, she knew very well where they were from. Then she tells a second lie, leading the king's men on a wild goose chase. She claims they had gone out from the city, and if the king's men hurry, they might just catch them before they get away. And now, having sent these soldiers away on a merry chase, she returns to the place where she's hidden the men on her roof, and she tells them why she has protected them. It's because she, like everyone else in Jericho, has heard about the coming Israelites and their God. It is clear to her in a way that it is not clear to her king or anyone else that because of the power of the Hebrew God, there is no sense in opposing them. The Lord your God is indeed God on heaven and on earth above, she proclaims, and with that, she secures the promise of the men that when the Hebrews attack the city, she and her family will be spared. Indeed, when we last hear of Rahab in the book of Joshua, we find that she and her people lived within Israel for generations to come. Is it ever permissible to lie? Well, it's always risky to draw broad generalities from one instance. But in this case, Rahab's lies served the glory of God. When we return next week, we'll talk about some obscure characters from the New Testament. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.